Hello and welcome to Alma Latina. Alma Latina is brought to you by our executive producer, Jaime Gomez, the Department of Communication at Eastern Connecticut State University, and the School of Education and Professional Studies and Graduate Division of Eastern Connecticut State University. Our guest today is Mario Bosquez. Mario Bosquez is an author, a playwright, an anchor for several television stations over the course of his long career. He packed a lot into a fairly short number of years, and I'd just like to thank you very much for coming with us, Mario,
Sure.
being here today. My first question is, you're right now, or you work for CBS, and you've worked in the past for Fox. And before that, in San Antonio. What was the station in San
At
Antonio?
KSAT in San Antonio, Texas. It's the ABC affiliate.
It's the ABC affiliate.
I've been working in broadcast for 28 years now. So
28 years.
Your introduction made me tired. I realized I did all that. Maybe it's time for early retirement. But yeah, I have been at it coming up on 3 decades now.
How did you happen to get into the television business?
Well, I went to Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. I graduated in 1978, a long time ago, and they had a broadcast journalism department. I double majored in Spanish as well. The way our family situation, it was almost a mercenary decision. I wanted to be a Spanish teacher. I love education. However, I thought if I tried broadcast journalism, perhaps I could bring in a little bit more money to the family as well. So combine my love of communication with my career and my family's needs. We grew up very financially deprived, and so I thought I would take a stab at broadcast. I've always liked to be a public speaker, even in first grade, reading in class to the rest of the students.
Well, how long did it take you to get your first job after you graduated?
After 4 years of the broadcast journalism training at Trinity, I wound up at KTSA, KTFM radio in San Antonio about 4 months after graduation. And I was the overnight newscaster. And we've all been there, entry-level jobs, working 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning.
But you were on air.
I was on the air, the graveyard shift.
So here's a question: did your communication degree help? What if you had majored in something else? Did you know stuff as a result of having majored in communication coming into?
I feel it did, and I think even after 28 years, what I learned then still applies now. And as I negotiate with writers on a news story for our show, that the who, what, when, where, why, and how will never fail you. So those basic skills that you learn in communications class applied not only to my first job, but the jobs I'm doing now.
Well, that brings up another question. Now, I know you're a writer, a playwright, an author of a nonfiction book. How much writing, and maybe you're going to have to answer this in 2 or 3 stages, but how much writing did you do when you were going to be the anchor? How much news did you write and then perform?
Well, that's a good question because it depends on the size of the market. In radio, I wrote all of my newscast material. In television in San Antonio, you wrote quite a bit of the newscast yourself along with a producer. In New York, there is a staff of writers, and they write the news copy that you read. You as anchor go in and copy edit along with the producer and the executive producer, and even while you're on the air, there's a computer there, and you're still, if you're on your mettle, if you're on your toes, you can still change as you go and always keep it fresh and keep it updated. So when it gets to the level of working at New York, there is a staff of writers, but you still get to work with them on the final shape of the copy.
Does your material come up on a teleprompter on the desk in front of you?
It does. You have actually several sources. You have your hard copy. Then you have your computer screen with the rundown of the show. You can pop up the scripts there. And then you have right on the camera, you have the teleprompter copy. And I'm very insistent upon the hard copy. I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. I want to see the paper on the desk because there are times when teleprompter will fail. The computer will shut down, and you will have your hard copy. So those are the 3 sources we have as fail-safes.
And do the writers learn your style? We all have a slightly different speech pattern and the way we say things and the length of sentence we are comfortable using. So do the writers sort of learn your voice and write to that?
It takes a while, I think, to work out a relationship with the staff and have them realize not only your style, but also your pacing. And are you a fast reader? Are you a slow reader? And what type of news approach do you have? As I understand it, some news computers can even time out your voice. And when they write the copy, they'll adjust it to the anchor's pacing. So it all depends. Also, I have my own idiosyncrasies when it comes to news writing styles, and we have to work that out with the writers as well.
So for you, it's a matter of helping them learn to speak your tone.
And what I see as news, for example, I generally take out adjectives. For example, some overused adjectives in broadcast journalism: a horrific accident,
Right.
a dramatic rescue, an unbelievable story. Take them out and give me the facts.
Right.
A rescue happened, here's what happened. A chilling story. They're words that the viewer, the listener watching the show, they're numb to them. So challenge yourself as a writer and as an anchor to tell the story with the nuts and bolts, and I think it'll be more effective.
That's the kind of information I think our students here at Eastern Connecticut State University are hoping to hear. That if I may ask you another question then about your career in the television news business, what places have a corporate culture? And you worked for Fox, which is very different from CBS. How was the corporate culture of the newsroom at Fox New York different from CBS New York?
The Fox news department was autonomous, and it was in one building there on 67th Street. Our WCBS2 station is located within the CBS Network Broadcast Center.
On 57th Street.
Yes. So it can be kind of overwhelming, intimidating, and sometimes intoxicating that the lure of network is right there when you walk through the doors, where Walter Cronkite has worked, where Harry Reasoner has worked, where they do 60 Minutes, where they do the nightly news. And so that can be tempting. So in my own sort of streetwise way of coping with things, I realize I work in the suburbs. CBS 2 is the suburbs, and CBS Network is the big city. So that's how I cope with that, and that is the difference between Fox and CBS.
And so the kind of directives and information that you would get from a news meeting, or when more corporate people are there, is about the same? Or?
About the same. I generally don't feel that, because the people in the meetings are generally the executive producer of that show, the producer of the show, the assistant producers, the writers, and perhaps one or two representatives from the assignments desk. And they work out the rundown for that particular show you're doing. So as far as corporate input, yes, you do get it. The general manager will call and say, well, what are you doing about this particular story? Or the news director will pop in and say, I want to sit in on this meeting. So you do get corporate directives through that route.
Right. And it wasn't particularly different at Fox versus CBS?
Not that I noticed, no.
Okay, great. And so now, return with me now to yesteryear for another moment of television history.
Okay.
The ABC affiliate in San Antonio. What was that? How was that different from playing in the Apple?
Big difference. Logistically was the major shock when I first moved to New York. In San Antonio, say there's breaking news.
Right.
You're there within 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes even as the police are working the story, and you arrive, you have more access to the working story. But in New York, it may take you an hour and a half to get to that story. And say you have a noon newscast to be a live shot reporter for. You have to literally have less time to video to spray the story. And
spray the story?
By the technique is just get the camera, spray the scene. Can't get too fancy. Get the nuts and bolts and feed it right back to the station. So sometimes it's called editing within the camera, and they shoot it in sequence as they hope that will help the editor put it together back in the newsroom. And as a writer, you have to write very quickly. So that was a major difference in working in San Antonio and then coming to New York and realizing breaking news will be there in 2 hours. I'm going, oh, how am I gonna cover that story and tell the story correctly? So you're working the phones on your way, and you have quite a bit of support from the assignments desk while you're doing that.
A little further back in history, when you were studying at Trinity University in San Antonio, you were majoring in communication. Did you do technical work as well as talent? In
1978 and before that, it was very hard to get hands-on experience. You had to wait till your last semester senior year to do a newscast.
And were you shooting video in 78?
It was all film. And so we had to learn how to edit sound on film. And silent VOs as well, voiceovers. And that was it. Video was only then just starting to come in. So quite a bit of it was in the classroom writing and learning the style of broadcast news writing.
So how important is writing?
It is to me, despite the fact that it's television #1. I feel that writing a 20-second voiceover, if it's a newspaper and you don't understand the story, you'll go, let me read that again. But if it's television, it's gone. So within that 20 seconds, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Make it interesting to the viewer. Don't give them any showbiz. Don't put any showy adjectives. Give them the meat and potatoes of the story. And then learning to marry the writing to the video and making sure that they agree with each other. To the point where if it's file video of a celebrity, say, it's file video from 10 years ago. Or put on the Chiron, 1982. So the specifics to me are extremely important. At the top of the list is, for me, the writing, despite the fact that it's, visual medium.
I'd like to take a moment, Mario Bosquez, to tell people that this is Alma Latina. We're coming to you from Eastern Connecticut State University, and we're talking to Mario Bosquez, who is a writer, a reporter, and has a long list of credits, not all of which we'll be able to cover today. He claims it made him an old man too young, but he looks pretty young to me. But now, your most recent piece of work is Chalupa Rules, the Chalupa Rules, a Latino guide to Gringolandia. Tell me a little bit about what that is.
Well, first,
let me just hold this up now. This is
thanks
a pretty
for the plug.
good-looking book.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's well designed, and what little of it I had a chance to read seemed really both intelligent and articulate and heartfelt. So tell me how you came to write this.
Well, a lifetime. It came from a lifetime of experiences. There's a game, if I may show you, called Mexican Bingo or Loteria. And in bingo in the United States, it's numbers and markers. Well, in our culture, South Texas, northern Mexico, and other parts of Mexico, you play with images: the hat, the star, the ladder, the bottle, the mermaid. And as you call out a deck from the deck of cards, you match it and you win. But on the back, it has riddles, and on the back, it has some proverbs. And so the proverbs on the back of the cards stuck with me as I grew up. As I told you, I grew up 8 people, 3 rooms, no hot water.
In what town?
In Alice, Texas, San Antonio.
Just outside of San Antonio. Very good.
With domestic violence, family alcoholism, living on the front porches of relatives' houses when we had no place else to go, if they had no room inside. It was a very rough beginning. And I realized that the backs of these cards, for example, the shrimp was here. And on the back was a saying that said, Camarón que se duerme, se lo lleva la corriente. The shrimp that falls asleep gets swept away by the current. And the challenges I felt as a child, it's funny that that phrase, that proverb saved me. It's like, don't fall asleep to opportunity, stay awake, keep swimming, keep swimming. And I still am. So then I realized that many of these images applied to life. For example, the mermaid. As a Mexican-American living in the United States, as a multicultural person, I thought, how do I survive in the United States and not let go of my culture? And I realized the image from this game, the mermaid, she lives in air and water. She's just fine, so you can do both. So that is one of my Chalupa rules. You can swim in your culture. For example, my apartment in New York City looks like a mariachi threw up in it. And I celebrate my culture. And I think we should all, whatever, as I call it, our flavor is, swim in it, live it. And your children will also absorb it that way. So with all that in mind, that's how my book began to grow. Not as a book, but sort of as a blueprint for life for myself.
And who is your who were you speaking to when you wrote this? To Mexican Americans, to people who are coming to this country from somewhere else?
Interesting question. It started out as sort of a culturally based book, but on my website I am getting emails from all over the country of people saying that many of these rules to them are very universal and apply to just being real about yourself, being real with other people, and claiming ownership of who you are, the good and the bad. Yes, I had those experiences as a child, but now I own them. And by claiming ownership, I can put them wherever I want to. So that another one is one of my Chalupa rules. So I'm finding that they seem to be very universal to people.
And I happen to have been to your website, and I noticed that there's an kind of discussion board there, and you're a very active participant in
Yes, I
in
am.
your website. You respond to the questions and comments that people make.
There are cultural questions in particular that we talk about. For example, a quinceañera is a young Latino girl's 15-year-old coming out party.
Right.
And should we have one? Should we not? She wants one. We can't afford it. Our church forbids it. So those are some of the topics that we cover. Say you're a Latina woman working in an office environment and someone calls you a señorita. And that, you want to know how to deal with that. So hopefully using my book, you'll find a way to cope with those types of multicultural questions.
I'm talking with Mario Bosquez, and he is an author and has a very active website that I've had the opportunity to visit, and I recommend it highly. I guess I just Googled Mario Bosquez is how I found it, and he sort of was the first one up. You can also get to it through CBS in New York. So I commend our listeners to visit your website, and actually if they write a little email or comment, they might well hear from you.
I would love it. I absolutely respond. Sure.
All right, well, very good. Now, you also, obviously, I gather that your base is your writing ability. You wrote a play, Los Duendes.
Very good pronunciation.
Oh, thank you very much. And now, I think you have it. Now, there is the expression duende la casa, which is an expression of the owner of the house coming in, and sometimes flamenco dancers.
The duende, the fire within,
right.
You're right.
And it comes to mean that when we're all sitting around being good together and having some fun and drinking and dancing and singing, sometimes the owner of the house comes in, the duende la casa comes in and takes over. Is that how
You're exactly right. However, in the Mexican culture, we have taken that, and now a duende, poltergeist, duende de la casa, can either be very good or very bad. And depending upon the energies of the house. And my play, my grandmother was a Native American faith healer. And so I learned a lot about faith healing and spirits from the Native American and the Mexican world. And Los Duendes deals with, it's semi-autobiographical. An old Mexican woman dies. She was a faith healer. Her house is empty except for the furnishings. Her family comes at night to clear out the furniture, to sell the house the next day because they need the money, but they start to reminisce the good and the bad within the house, and they wake up, Los Duendes de la Casa, and they come back to haunt them, and they've got to face their deepest, darkest family secrets at midnight, what I call the Mexican witching hour, and that's what Los Duendes is all about.
And this was first produced in San Antonio?
It was actually in
and
Houston.
You won 2 awards for it, if I'm not correct. What were they?
Stages Repertory Theater. It was a Southwest Festival for New Plays, Latino division, and it was a finalist in the Paul Green Playwrights competition as well. It was performed in Houston at Stages Repertory and in New York City at the Downtown Urban Theater Festival.
At the Downtown Urban Theater Festival in New York. And where else before that did you say?
It had a reading in Houston, and I also had a staged reading at Intar 2.
I know Intar very
yes,
well
in New York as well.
So in managing all these things, and if I'm not mistaken, you do comedy in various clubs around New York, including Caroline's. And
I have a multiple personality. I do a lot of different things. Yes, I do. I perform at Stand Up New York, at Caroline's, and also in Chicago, so I've traveled a lot doing stand-up as well.
Now, you said something before about that you liked to talk, even when you were in grade school, you liked to read from the book. Did you take any classes in articulation and speech?
I certainly did. I still remember Frances Richter was our professor at Trinity University, and she really helped me, which I am still working on. I'm from Texas, so I have a Texas accent.
Not now, you don't.
Well, when I'm really tired, you'll hear it's fixing to rain or something like that. And she really helped with our voice and diction. I've also been taking voice and singing classes for many years. And I feel no matter what it is you do for a living, that should be part of your toolkit, to take those classes and to be as clear as possible. I'm still working at it. I'm still a student of that. And even after 28 years of doing this, I still feel you should pursue the training.
And who are some of your heroes, some of the people that you might have who might have influenced your life and that you look to either for technical guidance or spiritual guidance, not necessarily that you know them, but who are some of your...
Well, one is my Aunt Elia, who passed away. She was my soulmate. And when my mom went back home after a very, very painful divorce, she helped her raise me. And she taught me one of the phrases that's in the Chalupa Rules. Whenever she was teaching me something as a child, and I was so overwhelmed by the technology of it, fixing plumbing, electricity, we had to fix our own stuff, we couldn't afford to hire anybody. She would say, no tiene ciencia. There's no science to it. There's no science in the world. I said, well, what do you mean? There is science. I hear about it all the time. She says, what I mean is everything starts from a nut and a bolt. Everything starts from point A. Break everything down to its most simple component and go step by step. And she was right. Even the space shuttle starts with one weld, one rivet, one wire. And her teaching me that, whatever project I take on initially is overwhelming, and I hear her voice in my head going, no tiene ciencia. There's no science. So she's in my book, so she's one of my main role models along with my mom.
And that kind of tells us that's a call to personal responsibility in many ways, because you can't just say, well, the machines will take care of it, or the people who understand the machines will take care of it. No matter what the machine does, we human beings finally have to shape the machine itself and what it's going to do.
I have an example of that.
Oh, good.
And I actually do that with my nieces and nephews, and it drives them crazy at first. What I do, I go to Walmart, I go to Target, wherever they sell those assemble-it-yourself inexpensive furniture.
Sure.
And you open it up, and it's all these pegs and dowels and staples and planks. And it's so overwhelming.
Yes, yes.
So we open the box, and we lay it out on the floor, and just allow ourselves to freak out. How are we going to do this? This is impossible. Then I show them the instruction book. So look, point A, take this, put some glue, and stick it here. Point B. Next thing you know, it's assembled. And that's my aunt living on saying, there is no science to it. And then I show them, look, we did this. You were overwhelmed, but going point A to point B to point C. Yes, there may be parts missing. Yes, you may tear your hair out here and there, but we did it together. So that's actually a living example of how I try to put these rules to the test using her insight that she gave me.
So the Chalupa Rules is kind of a set of dichos, ideas, sayings that help us negotiate this sort of thing.
Some are traditional, some are born from the Spanish culture, and others I invented. Because I tell people a proverb, whatever culture you're from, is set in stone, yes. It's lived by your ancestors, but feel free to invent your own. You can handcraft a proverb that may help you, and then in turn hand it to someone as a gift. So yeah, the traditional ones are set in stone. Others, make them up. If they help you cope with life, invent one, write it down, and live by it.
Chalupa is sometimes a piece of food.
Yes.
In South America, chalupa means a shoe that's sort of falling off. How did you come to that?
In Mexico, the chalupa is a little rowboat, like for example in the book. And so the chalupa food sometimes is named after the little rowboat.
Because it looks
like a
rowboat.
So in Mexico, this game is called loteria, lottery. But in southern Texas, where I'm from, we started calling it the Chalupa game. So that's how it came to be called the Chalupa Rules.
I see.
And so that's what it means.
And this is published by Penguin
Plume.
Penguin Plume.
Yes.
An important publisher, Penguin Books. I would like to thank you, Mario Bosquez, for visiting us and telling the students here at Eastern a little bit about the trials and tribulations and successes and anxieties of working your way as a writer and as a newscaster. The person who has been visiting us, Mario Bosquez, is an author, a news reporter who has worked for CBS, Fox, and the embassy affiliate in San Antonio. I'd like to thank you all for listening very much. And I'd like to thank you, Mario Bosquez, for coming with us and helping us understand a few things.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Y un placer. Thank you.